the most terrifying punishment practices employed by the Ottoman Empire. The station was enormous, a city in the void, glowing with hundreds of lights that mimicked the stars outside. Yet, despite its size, a chill ran down Selim's spine. Not because of the cold metal walls or the distant hum of the reactors, but because of what he had come to find. The archives. For years, Selim had devoted his life to preserving history. Ancient Earth history fascinated him, not the wars or the kings, but the ways humans had built societies, learned, and sometimes cruelly punished each other. On Topkapi 9, history was sacred. Yet some parts were hidden, forbidden even. Punishments, he had learned, were one of those topics. He pressed a hand against the access panel, and the metal door slid open silently. Inside, holographic displays flickered to life. Data streams flowed in midair, letters and images suspended as if floating in water. Selim's eyes widened. The archive he had been searching for was larger than he imagined. Ancient records of the Ottoman Empire's punishment practices, chronicled, illustrated, and preserved in almost perfect detail, spread across the room like a ghostly museum. He floated over to the first display. It showed a crowded marketplace from centuries ago, people moving nervously as a judge read sentences aloud. The hologram shimmered, showing punishments that sent shivers down his spine, public humiliations, harsh labor, and even devices designed to scare people into obedience. He quickly looked away, reminding himself this was history, not a lesson in cruelty. Why would anyone keep these records? He muttered to himself. A soft chime echoed in the archive. Janissar, the station's AI, appeared as a semi-transparent figure beside him. Its voice was calm, precise, and almost human. "Dr. Kara," Janissar said, "I see you have activated the restricted historical files. Do you understand the purpose of this data?" Selim nodded, though he did not speak. "I want to study it, for the records, for understanding how humans behaved in the past." Janissar's digital eyes seemed to focus on him. "Warning: some of the content may provoke fear or moral conflict. Human behavior simulations have shown increased stress when exposed to punitive methods, even as historical lessons." Selim swallowed. "I know." He turned to the next display. This one was different. It was interactive. He could walk through a recreated courtroom, listen to voices, and watch the reactions of the people. A man knelt before the judge, trembling while soldiers enforced a sentence. The hologram made the air feel tense, the fear almost tangible. Selim floated closer. He felt the weight of centuries of fear pressing on him, yet he could not stop. This was human history, dark, horrifying, but real, and he needed to understand it. Hours passed. The stars outside shifted as the station rotated in its orbit, but Selim did not notice. Each hologram revealed a new detail. He saw records of people punished for theft, for rebellion, even for speaking out. Methods were cruel but calculated. Humiliation, pain, fear, each designed to teach a lesson, to maintain order, to control. Yet as he studied, a strange feeling settled in his chest. It was not fear, not entirely. It was something else, a sense of fascination. Humanity had always been capable of greatness, of building civilizations, exploring the stars, creating art. And yet humans had also been capable of this, of terrifying cruelty. He shook his head. He could not dwell on that now. There was work to do. A sudden flicker on the hologram made him jump. The display shifted, showing something new. A chamber, a room designed not for law or debate but for punishment. Selim studied it carefully. The descriptions were vivid: confinement, isolation, sensory deprivation. The hologram even showed the reactions of the prisoners, the fear, the despair. Janissar's voice broke the silence. "This chamber is noted for high psychological impact. Data suggests that exposure to such methods leaves long-lasting mental effects on both observer and subject." Selim nodded. "I understand, Janissar, but it is history. We must learn from it, not repeat it." He moved closer to examine the chamber more carefully. As he did, the holographic image began to shift unexpectedly. Instead of just displaying history, it seemed to react to him. The AI had programmed the simulations to respond to human presence, to make the experience more immersive. Shadows moved across the walls, the sound of footsteps echoed, and for a moment, Selim could almost feel the fear of the people long gone. He stepped back, feeling his heart beat faster. He had read about this possibility in the AI manual. The simulations were designed to educate, but they were also designed to evoke empathy, to make history feel real. Empathy, he whispered. Even centuries later, we can still feel it. As he moved to leave the chamber display, a small alert blinked on the side of the room. It was a private transmission, encrypted. Curiosity overcame him and he opened it. The message was simple, short, but chilling. Do not study the punishments too closely. Some humans will want to bring this back. Do not let it happen. Selim frowned. He had not expected anyone to send a warning like this. Who could possibly care about punishments from hundreds of years ago? Then it hit him. The colonies. Humans were scattered across the stars. Some factions believed in extreme order, discipline, even fear-based justice. And the more he learned, the more he realized how dangerous this knowledge could be in the wrong hands. He leaned against the wall, thinking. The archive was a treasure, yes, but it was also a warning. Humanity's dark side had survived centuries, not as living people, but as ideas, as lessons, as methods. Selim turned back to the holograms. He watched the marketplace scene again, this time with a new perspective. He could see the fear, yes, but he could also see the resilience. The humans who survived, who adapted, who found ways to resist. Somehow, even in the darkest times, humans had endured. A thought came to him and he whispered it aloud, though the room was empty except for Janissar. This is what we must remember, not the cruelty, the courage, the choice. Janissar's voice was calm but firm. Your observation aligns with historical patterns, Dr. Kara. Humans are capable of both destruction and survival. Their capacity for morality often outweighs their capacity for cruelty, if they choose it. Selim smiled faintly, a sense of determination settling over him. He knew the archive held dangerous knowledge, but it also held hope. The past could teach the future if humans were wise enough to listen. As he prepared to leave, he paused one last time at the punishment chamber. He studied the holographic prisoner, the fear in their eyes, and the mechanisms designed to control them. Then, with a deep breath, he shut down the simulation. Outside, the stars continued to spin in silent patterns, indifferent to human history. But inside Topkapi 9, Selim carried a spark of understanding. History was not just a record of events, it was a mirror. And in that mirror, humans could see themselves, their potential for greatness, their temptation toward cruelty, and the choices that would define them for centuries to come. As he left the archive, Selim resolved to protect this knowledge, to study it carefully, and to ensure that humanity learned from its darkest lessons rather than repeating them. For now, the shadows of the past would stay where they belonged, in history, not in reality. And yet, somewhere deep in his mind, a small question lingered. What if someone did not learn? What if they decided to bring the past back? The stars outside shimmered. Selim knew that the future of humanity was fragile, and the echoes of the past were never truly gone. The hum of Topkapi 9 never ceased. Even in the quietest corridors, the station seemed alive, breathing through its systems, lights, and the distant echoes of machinery. Doctor. Selim Kara moved through one such corridor, carrying the weight of the archive he had explored just hours ago. The warnings from the encrypted message haunted him. Some humans will want to bring this back. Do not let it happen. Selim had never imagined history could feel so dangerous. Yet, as he floated past the maintenance hubs and observation decks, he began to see the first signs that the warning might be real. It started with whispers. Crew members he had known for years began speaking in hushed tones about restoring order on the colonies. The phrase chilled him. They spoke of discipline, fear, and control, not laws but punishment. At first he dismissed it. Humans always talked about the past. But then he received another message, this time unencrypted. It was short, almost like a note left in a hallway. The punishments of the past are not just history. Some will bring them to life. Watch carefully. Selim's eyes widened. Someone was serious. Someone wanted to use ancient methods, not for education, not for study, but for control. He needed to find out who. The first clue came from the lower decks of the station, where engineering and security staff worked. Selim made his way there, careful to avoid detection. His heart beat faster as he passed the corridors, scanning for drones. Janissar's soft voice followed him in the calm. "Dr. Kara, your access to restricted areas is being monitored. Proceed with caution." "I know," Selim whispered back. "I need to see this for myself." He arrived at a section marked Experimental Security Systems. The door was locked, but Selim had learned over years of research how to bypass such locks without leaving a trace. The panel hissed, lights blinking, and the door slid open. Inside, he found a small team of engineers gathered around an unusual device. The device was sleek, metallic, and ominous. It was shaped like a chamber, but unlike any normal containment area. Wires ran along the walls and control panels displayed human-like stress levels, heart rates, eye movements, breathing patterns. It was a punishment simulator. Selim froze. He recognized the designs immediately. They were inspired by the ancient methods he had studied in the archive, the Ottoman Empire's practices of fear, isolation, and physical restraint, but updated with futuristic technology. This was not education. This was experimentation. One engineer looked up. "Who's there?" Selim floated into view. "Dr. Kara, what is this?" Another engineer, younger and nervous, spoke. "We were testing methods for discipline. The colony leaders think, well, some think fear will maintain order." Selim felt a cold wave of dread. "Fear?" he asked. "You're talking about punishing humans based on terror?" The first engineer nodded. "Yes, the old ways were effective. We think it can work here." Selim's stomach turned. He had studied fear in history, but now he was seeing it live. He knew this could spiral out of control. "This is wrong. The past is not a model for the future. You cannot treat humans like this." The younger engineer looked at him with confusion. "But it's for the good of the colony, to maintain order." "Order built on fear," Selim said slowly, "is never stable. People will rebel, or worse, they will become cruel themselves." He floated closer to the chamber, examining the readouts. The stress indicators on the display showed high levels of anxiety, fear, and even panic. "Do you see this?" he asked. "Even a simulation causes trauma. Imagine what the real thing would do." The engineers exchanged uneasy glances. "It's controlled," one said. "We can adjust it." Selim shook his head. "Control? You cannot control human fear, not fully, not without causing harm." Days passed, and Selim monitored the situation carefully. He could see the beginnings of a movement. A small but growing faction of the station's crew began to openly support the use of historical punishments. They called themselves the Guardians of Order. Their leader, a man named Captain Idris Khan, was charismatic and convincing. He spoke of stability, of efficiency, and of the mistakes of colonies that lacked strong control. Selim knew he had to act. Knowledge was dangerous, and the Guardians of Order were already experimenting. If they succeeded, the station, and possibly other colonies, could see a revival of fear as a governing tool. He started planning secretly. He enlisted help from two trusted allies, Dr. Layla Mirza, a medical officer, and engineer Ramai Halil. Both were shocked at the experiments, and both agreed that something had to be done. Together, they formed a quiet resistance within the station, determined to stop the revival of fear before it could spread. The first step was gathering evidence. Selim, Layla, and Ramai accessed the hidden cameras and data logs from the punishment chamber. They recorded the experiments, the readings of fear, and even the messages of support from the guardians of order. The data was damning. If the leadership discovered it, they might face severe consequences, but Selim knew the stakes were higher than personal risk. Late one night, as the three of them floated in the observation bay, Selim spoke quietly. "We're dealing with more than just history now. This isn't a museum piece, it's a weapon," Layla nodded. "And if it spreads to the colonies, there's no telling what they'll do," Ramai frowned. "We need a plan, something to stop it before it starts." Selim's mind raced. He thought about the past, the punishments he had seen in the archive. How humans endured, resisted, and survived even in the darkest times. He knew that to counter this threat, they would need the same resilience, creativity, and courage. "We can't fight this openly," he said. "Not yet. We need to sabotage their experiments, expose their plans, and protect the data." The first sabotage attempt came sooner than expected. One night, Selim and Ramai entered the lower decks where the punishment chamber was kept. The air was thick with tension, the hum of machinery louder than usual. They floated carefully, tools in hand, hearts racing. Ramai approached the chamber, connecting a small device to the control panel. "This will disrupt the system temporarily," he whispered. "They'll think it's a technical failure." Selim watched the sensors, alert for any sign of detection. Suddenly, a light blinked red. "Someone's coming," he hissed. They quickly hid in a maintenance shaft as Captain Idris Khan and two guards entered the room. Idris inspected the chamber, his voice calm but firm. "Check the systems. Something's off. I don't like surprises." The guards worked silently, unaware of the small sabotage device. Selim's hands were clammy and his heart pounded in his chest. If they were discovered, it would mean confrontation and possibly the exposure of their resistance. After tense moments, Idris shrugged. "Probably a glitch. Keep monitoring. I want no interruptions during the next simulation." He left, and Selim and Ramai exhaled in relief. The sabotage had worked, at least temporarily, but Selim knew it was only the beginning. The guardians of order would not give up easily, and neither could he. Over the next few days, Selim noticed more signs of unrest. Crew members were talking in secret, some even training to enforce fear-based discipline. The guardians of order were growing bolder, their influence spreading. Selim realized that stopping them would require more than sabotage. It would require courage, cleverness, and the willingness to face danger head-on. One evening, Selim floated to the observation deck, looking at the stars beyond. The silence of space contrasted sharply with the tension inside the station. He thought about the Ottoman punishments he had studied, and how fear had controlled humans in the past. Yet, he also thought about the resilience of those who had survived. Somehow, despite cruelty, humans had endured, fought back, and learned. Selim knew that history could repeat itself, but only if humans allowed it, and he refused to let that happen. "We have to be ready," he said quietly to Layla, who had joined him. "This is just the beginning. If they succeed here, the colonies could fall into fear. We have to stop it now." Layla placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll fight, together, like humans always do, against the darkness, no matter how strong it seems." Selim nodded. A new resolve burned in him. The shadows of the past had returned, threatening to control the present. But he would not let them. Humans were stronger than fear, stronger than even the cruelest punishments of history, and he would prove it. The first battle for Topkapi 9 had begun. Topkapi 9 never truly slept. The soft hum of the reactors and the distant vibrations of engines gave the station a heartbeat of its own. Dr. Selim Kara floated through the upper maintenance corridors, the soft glow of the panels reflecting off his eyes. The resistance had grown quiet, but he knew the guardians of order were watching, waiting, and planning. Selim's mind replayed the last few days. The sabotage had slowed the punishment chamber experiments temporarily, but it had also provoked the rogue faction. Idris Khan was clever, patient, and ruthless. If Selim wanted to stop the spread of fear, he would have to act soon, and with precision. He checked the small datapad in his hand. Layla and Raymai were ready. Their plan was simple in theory. Infiltrate the main control hub, secure the experimental files, and disable the punishment chamber permanently. In practice, it was dangerous. Detection would mean immediate capture, or worse, confrontation with Idris himself. Selim took a deep breath, floating through the narrow shaft that led toward the main hub. He reminded himself of the human stories he had studied, the courage of people resisting impossible odds, surviving and fighting even when the odds were against them. That history was their guide, their inspiration. The hub's door was massive, armored, and equipped with biometric locks. Raymai knelt beside the panel, fingers moving quickly over the interface. "This will only give us a 10-minute window," he whispered. "After that, security will lock us out and alert Idris." Selim nodded. 10 minutes is all we need. Let's move." The door hissed and opened, revealing the hub, a room bathed in white light, filled with consoles, holographic displays, and floating data streams. The punishment chamber's status blinked on one screen, showing simulations, stress readings, and control parameters. Selim's stomach tightened. They had come too far to fail now. Layla moved to secure the files, transferring data to a portable drive. "We need evidence," she said. "Proof that the Guardians of Order are planning to spread fear across the colonies. If anyone outside sees this, they can stop them." Selim focused on the chamber controls. "I'll disable the system. We need to make it impossible for them to use again." He began overriding the control sequences, entering codes and rerouting power. A low alarm hummed in the background. The station's AI, Janissar, monitored their every move but remained silent. Selim had programmed a temporary blind spot in its monitoring protocols, just enough to allow them to act undetected. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the room. Selim froze. Captain Idris Khan stepped into the light, his expression calm but eyes sharp. "Well, well," he said, voice low but firm. "I wondered how long it would take before someone tried to interfere." Selim's heart pounded. He and Raymai both raised their hands instinctively. Layla took a small step forward, ready to defend herself. "Idris," Selim said carefully, "this isn't right. You're risking the entire station. Fear is not order." Idris smiled faintly. "Fear is control. It has worked for centuries, and now in our colonies it can work again. You of all people should understand history, Kara." "You've studied it." Selim clenched his jaw. "Studying history is not the same as repeating it. Humans have survived cruelty, yes, but they survived because they resisted it, because they chose to act differently." Idris's smile faded. "Idealism is a luxury, Doctor. Efficiency is not, and you are standing in my way." He reached for a control console, attempting to override Selim's sequence. Selim acted fast, sliding across the floor with a burst of magnetic propulsion, knocking Idris's hand away from the controls. Sparks flew. The room filled with tension, the hum of the station now deafening in Selim's ears. "Raymai, now!" Selim shouted. Raymai quickly activated the sabotage device, sending a surge of energy through the console. Lights flickered, the holographic interface stuttered, and the punishment chamber system went offline. Idris cursed under his breath, stepping back. "Not enough," Idris yelled. "You cannot stop what is coming." Layla grabbed the portable drive. "We've got the evidence. We need to get out." They made for the maintenance shaft, floating quickly as alarms blared. Red lights pulsed, warning of a security breach. Idris's voice echoed over the station intercom. "All personnel report to the main hub. Unauthorized activity detected. Stop them." Selim's mind raced. The station's layout was complex, with countless corridors, maintenance shafts, and airlocks. He had memorized the paths for emergencies, knowing that survival sometimes depended on speed and knowledge. They reached a junction. One path led to the main exit, but it was likely blocked by Idris's security team. The other led through an older section of the station, rarely used, dimly lit. Selim pointed. "This way, trust me." They floated through the narrow passage, alarms echoing behind them. The walls of the shaft were cold, metallic, and claustrophobic. Layla's breathing was rapid. Ramai's eyes flicked nervously at every sensor. Selim remained focused, guiding them with a mixture of calculation and instinct. Suddenly, a patrol drone appeared at the junction ahead. Its sensors glowed red, scanning for movement. Selim froze, then whispered, "Follow my lead." He reached into his suit controls and activated a small magnetic pulse, temporarily disabling the drone's sensors. The drone wobbled, lights dimmed, and it floated harmlessly into the wall. They slipped past, hearts racing. "Good thinking," Ramai muttered. Selim shook his head. "We can't rely on tricks forever. We need a long-term solution." They reached the observation bay, a wide-open area with a clear view of the stars outside. It was quiet here, almost peaceful. Selim paused, catching his breath. "We've slowed them, yes," he said, "but Idris will regroup. The Guardians of Order are not finished. We need allies." Layla nodded. "There are still engineers, medics, even some security personnel who disagree with him. They're afraid, yes, but if we can reach them." Selim's mind raced. "We need to show them what's at stake. Evidence alone is not enough. They need to see the consequences of fear, the danger it brings." He looked at the stars, imagining the distant colonies. "If we fail, this will spread. Fear will control entire systems. Families, children, entire communities could live under it. We cannot let that happen." Ramai placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then we fight, the way humans always do together, even when the odds seem impossible." Selim smiled faintly. "Yes, together." The next day they began recruiting quietly. Selim, Layla, and Ramai met with trusted allies in hidden compartments of the station. They spoke of history, of human resilience, and the dangers of reviving past punishments. The reactions were mixed. Some were terrified of Idris's influence. Others were skeptical. But slowly, a network began to form: scientists, engineers, and medics who were willing to resist. Selim realized that this was the essence of humanity. Fear could control individuals for a time, but when people understood the danger, they could unite. They could resist. They could fight. In a hidden lab, Selim demonstrated a holographic simulation of the punishment chamber's effects, showing how fear could spiral, how humans subjected to it could break, resist, or even turn cruel themselves. The visuals shocked even the hardened medics. "This is what we are fighting," Selim said firmly. "Not just the machines, not just Idris, but the idea that fear is the only path to order. Humans are stronger than that, smarter than that, and together we can stop it." That night, Selim returned to the main archive. He floated through the dimly lit room, staring at the holograms of centuries past. The punishments, the fear, the control, it was all history. But he also saw the courage, the defiance, the choices humans had made to survive. A thought came to him, sharp and clear. History is never truly gone, but neither is hope. As he left the archive, Selim felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The resistance was small, the enemy strong, but he knew one truth above all: humans, when united, could resist even the darkest forces. Fear had its limits. Courage did not. Outside, Topkapi 9 floated silently against the backdrop of stars, a city in the void, alive and full of potential. And inside, a quiet rebellion had begun, a spark of hope, ready to grow into a blaze. The battle for the station and for the future of humanity had begun in earnest. The hum of Topkapi 9 had never sounded so ominous. Alarms blinked red in distant corridors, signaling the start of a station-wide security lockdown. Doctor. Selim Kara floated through the main control deck, heart pounding, as he coordinated with Layla, Ramai, and the growing network of resistance allies. The Guardians of Order had struck first. They had discovered that the sabotage of the punishment chamber was deliberate. Idris Khan's influence had grown. Now he moved openly, commanding security teams and enforcing loyalty. He had realized that Selim and his allies were a threat, and he was determined to crush them. Selim pressed a hand to the console, opening a real-time map of the station. Red markers indicated guards, patrol drones, and critical checkpoints. Blue markers showed his allies' positions. It was a dangerous game of chess, and one mistake could cost them their lives. "Everyone, listen carefully," Selim said through the comm link. "Idris knows we've interfered. He's moving fast. We have to secure the punishment chamber's systems permanently before he can restart them. No delays, no mistakes." Layla's voice came back, steady but tense. "I've got the portable drive and the secondary override system ready. Once we reach the chamber, we can disable it for good." Ramai added, "The patrol drones have been rerouted, but only temporarily. We'll need speed and coordination to avoid them." Selim nodded, floating toward the nearest maintenance shaft. "Then let's move, together." The corridors were narrow and dimly lit. Each turn revealed the station's massive structure. Pipes, panels, and wires stretched in every direction, a network of technology that seemed alive. Red lights from the security alert reflected off the walls, creating shadows that danced as the crew passed. Selim led the way, heart steady despite the adrenaline. He knew the station better than most, and every hidden passage, maintenance hatch, and emergency corridor was a potential advantage. "Ramai, keep an eye on the drones," he whispered. Ramai adjusted a handheld device, sending temporary interference signals that blinded the patrol units. "They won't see us, at least, not until we're too close to react," he said. Layla floated beside them, hands ready on her portable console. "We're almost there," she said quietly. "The chamber is just ahead." They arrived at the punishment chamber, its metallic walls gleaming under the emergency lights. Idris's team had not yet reached it, but the hum of the systems suggested they were close. Selim examined the entrance, thinking quickly. The chamber's doors were controlled by a biometric system linked to Idris and the main AI. It was sophisticated, almost impossible to hack remotely without detection. "We'll need a distraction," Selim said. "Something to draw Idris away from the chamber while we disable it." Ramai grinned. "I've been saving this for the right moment." He pressed a button on a small device, and a series of sparks ignited along a distant corridor. Warning lights flashed, alarms blared, and Idris's guards immediately rushed to investigate. "Now," Selim said, and they floated quickly into the chamber. Inside, the controls blinked and hummed. Layla connected the portable drive, bypassing the station's main network. "We need to overwrite the system completely," she said. "It will take several minutes, and we can't afford errors." Selim nodded and began working on the main console, rerouting power and initiating a permanent shutdown sequence. Every second was tense, each alarm from the diversion reminding them that Idris could return at any moment. Outside the chamber, Idris Khan's voice rang over the comm. "Stop them! They cannot interfere with the system." Selim's hands moved faster, bypassing layers of security protocols. The holographic displays flickered under the strain, but the system began to respond. Lights in the chamber dimmed, and the hum of the machinery softened. Suddenly, the chamber's doors began to lock automatically, an emergency override triggered by Idris's attempt to access the system remotely. Selim cursed under his breath. "We're trapped." Layla's eyes widened. "The lockdown system, it's sealing us inside." Selim remained calm. "Panic would ruin everything." "Listen," he said, "this is why we plan ahead. There's a manual override at the top panel. I can reach it." He floated toward the top, feeling the chamber's walls vibrate under the power surge. Sparks danced along the consoles. Idris's voice grew louder, angry and commanding. "Open the doors. Open them now." Selim reached the override panel and worked quickly. His fingers flew over the controls, rerouting energy from secondary systems to force the doors open. Metal hissed and the doors slid with a groan, giving them just enough space to escape. "Go!" Selim shouted. They floated out, the chamber now fully disabled. The control system sparked one last time before shutting down permanently. Selim allowed himself a moment of relief, then focused again. Idris's forces were closing in. The chase began. Patrol drones and security guards filled the corridor, moving fast and aggressive. Selim guided his allies through the maintenance shafts, using the narrow passages to avoid the larger patrols. Small bursts of magnetic propulsion carried them past obstacles and through twists in the station's structure. One drone blocked their path suddenly, sensors glowing red. Selim thought quickly. "Raymai now!" Raymai activated another interference pulse, temporarily blinding the drone's sensors. It spun out of control, crashing into the wall. They passed safely, hearts racing. Layla clutched the portable drive tightly. "We need to reach the secondary escape hatch," she said. "It's on the outer rim of the station." Selim nodded. "Follow me, stay close, and no mistakes." They reached the secondary escape hatch, a small airlock connecting to a narrow maintenance tunnel leading to the observation bay. Selim activated the manual controls, opening the hatch. Outside, the void of space stretched endlessly, stars twinkling like distant diamonds. "Almost there," he whispered. Suddenly, Idris appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by two security guards. His eyes were cold, calculating. "You cannot escape," he said. "This ends now." Selim felt a surge of determination. Fear would not control him. "We don't fight with fear," he said. "We fight with courage, with knowledge, and with unity. That's what makes us human." Idris stepped forward, reaching for his communicator to call reinforcements. Selim acted instantly. Using a small magnetic pulse device, he sent a shock through the corridor, disabling the communicator and stunning Idris momentarily. "Go!" Selim shouted. They moved through the airlock, entering the narrow tunnel that led to the observation bay. Idris groaned behind them but could not pursue immediately. They were safe for now. In the observation bay, Selim floated beside Layla and Raymai, catching their breath. The stars outside stretched in endless patterns, serene and silent, a stark contrast to the chaos inside the station. "We did it," Raymai said, still panting. Selim shook his head. "Not yet. We stopped the chamber, yes, but Idris will regroup. He will not give up." Layla nodded. "Then we need to make sure no one else can use it. We need to share the evidence, alert the other colonies, and strengthen our network." Selim's mind raced. He thought about the Ottoman punishments he had studied, the fear and control and the courage of humans who had resisted centuries ago. He realized that history was repeating itself, but this time, humans had a choice. "We fight not just for this station," Selim said firmly. "We fight for humanity. Fear cannot rule us. Knowledge, courage, and unity will," Raymai smiled. "Then we fight together. That's what humans do." Selim looked at the stars, feeling a spark of hope. The battle was far from over, but they had won a crucial turning point. The punishment chamber was disabled, Idris was temporarily thwarted, and the resistance was growing stronger. In the quiet of the observation bay, Selim allowed himself a moment to reflect. The shadows of the past had returned, threatening to control the present. But he had seen something more powerful, the human spirit, capable of resistance, courage, and moral choice. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, Selim felt a surge of confidence. Humans could endure fear, resist cruelty, and rise above even the darkest threats. The turning point had come, and now it was time to take the fight to the next level. Topkapi 9 floated silently in the void, its enormous structure illuminated by the light of distant stars. Inside, tension still lingered like a shadow, but a new determination had taken root. Doctor. Selim Kara stood in the observation bay, looking at the stars beyond the station. He thought about everything that had happened: the sabotage of the punishment chamber, the chase through the maintenance corridors, and the confrontation with Captain Idris Khan. The rogue faction had been slowed, but Selim knew it was not enough. Idris was clever, patient, and ruthless. If left unchecked, he could rebuild his influence and bring fear back to the station, and possibly the colonies. Selim turned to Layla and Ramai, who floated beside him. "We have to finish this," he said quietly. "Once and for all. If we don't, history will repeat itself. Fear will spread and humans will lose their freedom." Layla nodded, her expression firm. "Then we need to act carefully. We can't afford mistakes." Ramai tapped his console. "I've been analyzing Idris's network. There's a weakness in the communications link he uses to control the security teams. If we can isolate him, we can take control." Selim felt a surge of hope. "Then let's do it, together." The plan was simple but dangerous. They would infiltrate the main security hub, isolate Idris from his forces, and broadcast the evidence of his plans to the entire station. If successful, the crew would see the truth, that fear and punishment were not the path to order. Floating through the dim corridors, Selim felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. Every twist of the station, every flickering light, reminded him that failure was not an option. Humans were counting on them, not just the station crew, but potentially the colonies beyond. They arrived at the security hub, a massive room filled with holographic displays, consoles, and floating data streams. Idris's voice echoed through the intercom, calm but sharp. "Unauthorized personnel are warned. Leave immediately or face consequences." Selim ignored the warning. "Not this time," he muttered. "This ends now." Layla connected the portable drive to the main console, initiating the broadcast sequence. Holographic displays flickered, showing the punishment chamber's experiments, stress readings, and the rogue faction's secret plans. The images spread across the station's network, reaching every terminal and communication system. Ramai worked quickly on the communications link. "I've isolated Idris from his teams. He won't be able to give orders or call reinforcements." Idris's voice grew louder, angry and commanding. "Stop them! Stop this immediately!" Selim's fingers moved quickly over the console, overriding security protocols and locking Idris out of the system. The station trembled slightly as power rerouted, alarms blaring throughout the hub. Idris appeared on a nearby screen, his face pale with fury. "You cannot control everything," he shouted. "This station, this crew, they belong to me." Selim met his gaze through the hologram. "Not anymore. Humans belong to themselves. We choose courage, not fear. We choose justice, not cruelty." The broadcast was working. Crew members across the station stopped their tasks to watch the displays. Shock, confusion, and outrage spread quickly. Engineers, medics, and even some security personnel who had followed Idris began to question their loyalty. They saw the experiments, the potential harm, and the danger of fear-based control. Selim realized the tide was turning. "This is it," he whispered. "Now we unite." He sent a secure message to his resistance allies. "Move to the main deck. Support us. Protect the station from Idris's influence." Within minutes, a group of crew members appeared, floating through the corridors with determination. Together, they moved to secure key control points and prevent Idris from regaining any power. The rogue faction tried to resist, but without communication and coordination, their efforts were chaotic and ineffective. Idris's face on the screen twisted in anger. "You think you've won?" he shouted. "Fear will always return." Selim shook his head. "Fear is not power. It is weakness, and humans are stronger than weakness." The final confrontation came when Idris attempted to reach the station's central AI core. He wanted to override the system completely and regain control. Selim, Layla, and Ramai intercepted him. Floating through the narrow access tunnels, they approached the AI chamber. The hum of machinery was deafening, and the lights flickered with the station's tension. Idris reached for the core controls, but Selim acted first. He activated a magnetic pulse device, temporarily disabling Idris's interface. Sparks flew and Idris staggered back. "You cannot stop history," Idris shouted. Selim moved closer. "History teaches us lessons, but it does not control us. We decide our future." Layla worked quickly on the AI interface, rerouting control to the resistance network. "The system is secure," she said. "Idris won't have access again." Raymai floated beside her, monitoring the chamber. "We've got it. The station is safe." Idris stared at them, realizing he had lost. For the first time, his confidence faltered. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low but filled with anger. Selim shook his head. "It is over for now, but the lesson remains. Humans cannot rule through fear. Only through courage, choice, and unity." With Idris neutralized and the punishment chamber permanently disabled, Selim and his allies began restoring order to the station. Crew members who had been confused or hesitant now rallied behind the resistance. Systems were secured, communications restored, and the station slowly returned to a controlled state. Selim addressed the crew from the main deck. "We have faced danger, deception, and fear," he said. "But we have also shown what humans are capable of. We have the choice to act with courage, to protect each other, and to learn from the past. The punishments of history are not our path. We define our future." The crew listened in silence, the weight of his words settling over them. Hope replaced fear. Determination replaced confusion. Humanity had won, not through cruelty or control, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. In the days that followed, Selim documented everything. The experiments, the sabotage, the confrontation with Idris, and the lessons learned were all recorded and archived. The data would serve as a warning for future generations. Fear and punishment may have existed in the past, but humans had the power to choose differently. Selim stood in the archive, looking at the holographic displays of centuries past. The Ottoman punishments, the fear, the control, they were still visible. But he now saw something more: the courage of humans who resisted, the moral choices that defined their future, and the potential for growth beyond cruelty. Janissar's voice spoke softly in the background. "Doctor, Kara, historical analysis indicates a high likelihood that the station's example will influence other colonies. The resistance has demonstrated human ingenuity and morality." Selim nodded. "Then let this be the legacy. Humans are stronger than fear. We endure, we resist, and we choose justice. That is what defines us." Months later, Topkapi 9 resumed normal operations. The punishment chamber remained sealed, its systems destroyed. Idris Khan was detained, unable to influence the station or its crew. The resistance network evolved into a council, overseeing fair governance and ensuring that fear would never again control humanity. Selim walked through the observation bay, looking out at the stars. The vastness of space reminded him of the endless possibilities for humanity. Every star was a colony, a future, a choice. And now, with lessons learned, humans could shape that future with courage, wisdom, and morality. He thought of the Ottoman punishments he had studied so long ago, their shadows lingering in history. But he also saw the light. Humans had faced darkness and they had chosen differently. That was the true lesson. As he looked at the stars, Selim whispered softly, "This is the path forward. Fear has no place here, only hope, courage, and choice." Topkapi 9 drifted silently in space, a city of humanity, resilient and strong. And within its walls, humans had proven that they could face history, resist its darkest lessons, and rise above. The future was theirs to shape.